Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. We're returning with our 2022 NFL Draft Prospect Rankings, looking at the second crop of cornerback rankings. We noted in our first video about cornerbacks that this is a deep class. We have first-round grades on all these top five guys: Andrew Booth, McDuffie, McCreary, Sauce Gardner, and Derek Stingley. And these next crop of guys, they're all day two picks in my mind. Maybe some early day three, and we're going to break down some of these prospects we like a lot. We got 6 prospects up on the board. Dill, I'm going to kick it off to you. Marcus Jones, possibly the most exciting player in college football, if not one of the most. What do you see in this game, and why do you have him so high here?
Yeah, so I think what's obviously super intriguing is I think he might be as sticky as any cornerback in this draft.
Yeah.
With that being said, obviously he's got the 5'8", 185-pound frame, which certainly is a little bit of a concern. But I don't know. I saw him banging with Pierce at Cincinnati. He was a bigger, wide out, kind of solid contested catch guy, and I think he did a decent job on him, was able to make plays on the ball, has the athleticism to kind of do it and be able to jump with guys and use that to make up for maybe a lack of height. But I think it's rare to see guys who really play that lockdown man coverage.
Yeah, what I have on Marcus Jones is, one, before you even talk about him as a cornerback prospect, you have to know that wherever you draft this guy, you are getting not just like upside on the special teams, it's like elite, one of the best special teamers we've seen in the last decade at the college football level, both in kick and punt return. I think I have his stats here. He had nine total return touchdowns. He averaged 34 yards a kick return his last year there at Houston. So tremendous upside there. Breaking down the actual cornerback film, yeah, I echo a lot of the things you said, especially with that man coverage. He's just super competitive, has phenomenal short area quickness, but also that long speed to run with the bigger guys. The downside on him is he's 5'8". Texas Tech gave him a little bit of trouble. Those bigger 6'3" plus wide receivers gave him a little trouble at the catch point, when at the end of the day, if someone's got 5 inches on you, it's hard to make those plays. I see him more as a nickel cornerback in the league, but the thing is, like, there's the stigma on nickel cornerbacks is gone. Like, playing in the nickel is, I mean, some teams run nickel the whole time. And so
you need a good nickel
who can play that nickel at a high level isn't just like a pass over thought now. It's a legit position that you need to have a strong player in. I think with the Buffalo Bills with Teron Johnson, he's brought a lot of juice to the defense from that nickel position. He plays a lot of football there too. Another thing is very good ball skills. He has played wide receiver before, and that's evident. He's very aggressive. 9 total interceptions, 31 passes defended throughout his time in college, both at Houston and Troy. I think the aggressiveness is like good and bad. Like, he definitely gets beat a little bit because he's so aggressive, but then you also, like, he's a game breaker. He can change games with pick sixes, interceptions, obviously kick and punt returns. Like, this dude can blow open games. And we're higher than him on most people, and that's because I think we have a lot of respect for him.
Probably because there's a lot of goofy stat, like, measurable watchers who that's all they do is like, oh, wow, he's not 6 feet tall.
Well, and like the same thing with Roger McCreary, who measured in at the Senior Bowl with shorter arms. But like, he's just good at the position. He's very sticky. And he had one of the best weeks down there at the Senior Bowl out of the DBs because he's actually just a good player. Like, measurements be damned, like, this dude's a really good football player.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm out on the measurables peoples. They find that annoying, but whatever. I don't know. Like, if you ball, you ball.
I'm not like totally out on it, especially with like the tackles and the edge guys, and you see like a Kingsley and Igbari who has 35-inch arms. Like, he makes plays, and you can see him use it to his advantage. But like, you can also have really long arms and be like not using the right way, and it doesn't matter. But Marcus Jones, man, he's a baller. He's so, like, you just turn on the highlights once I was done with the film and just turn on the highlights. So whether it's him coming down, making a massive hit, massive play on the ball, or a kick or punt return, like, dude, he's just a stud.
Yeah, I mean, the next guy we jump into, though, I guess, is very much going to be on the opposite of the measurable end.
Yeah.
Martin Emerson, yeah, you look at him, 6'2", 185, lean, long corner. Who I think what kind of pushes him up for me is I think he is versatile and he can play zone and man. And
Yeah.
for the size he is, he does a pretty good job staying with man coverage, not just on long routes, but I think he can track it okay in the shorter areas. So I think when you're that big and you can move that well, kind of like a Kyer Elam and a little bit how I think of him. So that's that's kind of what I like about his game is you got a combination of size along with the ability to play man.
Yeah. The games I watched of him are LSU, Memphis, and Bama. So obviously a couple of teams that have very good wide receiving core. That was when Keishon Butte was playing. You mentioned the length, like that's there and that's very effective. He's good in both zone and man. I think the one maybe knock on him is that he definitely does have a little bit of problems like changing direction with some of those twitchier wide receivers. Kelvin Austin of Memphis got the best of him a couple times, but there's very few people in the league who can keep up with his quickness. He's a guy who flashed big time at the Senior Bowl this week down in Mobile. Competitive is another thing I have on my notes, and like that's something that I wish ROC was on for because that's something that you want to see in your cornerbacks is just like that Jalen Ramsey dog in him. And both Marcus Jones
maybe a little too competitive last year. He was doing his little thing at Seth Williams and then just got toasted. But
yeah, but like
I don't know. I mean, you got to have that mentality either way.
oh,
Yeah,
100%.
get bit doing it, but
sometimes, but like. And it's controlled too, but it was like a 2nd and 25 after like a chop block or something. In the I think it was the LSU game, and he gives up. He's playing like an off zone coverage, and he gives up like a 4-yard reception. He's pissed about it. Like it's in the scheme of things, it's like going to be like 3rd and 21. It's a good play. Like you didn't give up.
yeah,
And he was like he was noticeably angry about it. Like he hates when people don't throw at him that much. And you can kind of note that with like all these guys when you're watching the film, like there's a lot of plays where like they're just not getting targeted because they're so good. But yeah, Martin Emerson's a guy who's just super, super appealing with how he moves with being 6'2" in that length. That's definitely special. And then we get to a guy, Kobe Bryant, who probably doesn't have like he is 6'1", 200 pounds, but doesn't have quite those physical attributes. Definitely not as twitchy. Not as good.
Play the ball in the air though.
Huh?
So he can play the ball in the air though.
And that's the first thing I have in my notes. I'm happy you brought that up. I'll let you go talk about him first, and then I'll come in. But what did you see out of Kobe Bryant's film that you like so much?
Ball skills. I mean, I think
Elite.
I don't actually know what his pick numbers were, but they seem like they're pretty decent.
9 picks, 35 passes defended in his career at Cincy.
Yeah, so that's obviously a guy who's getting his hand on the ball. I am slightly concerned with just pure athleticism. I think I don't think that flashed out to me. So it's like he does make good plays on the ball. So I think he'd be like a Richard Sherman, like a deep thirds kind of style guy. Like that's kind of the role I can see him in. I don't think he's going to be a great man coverage guy at any point, but when you're an elite ball skill guy, like when Richard Sherman was at the height of his powers, he showed tremendous ball skills, was getting a lot of picks. I mean, in his scheme, he was great. Do I think Richard Sherman was ever like the best corner in the league? Definitely not. But like for his scheme, he was awesome. And I think Kobe Bryant has a chance to be a guy who in the proper defense with it that's more comfortable in zone could be really, really good or productive at least.
I have very similar notes that I took. Primarily zone coverage there. Cincy, the ball skills is what jumps out, and I think there's not many college guys who are as good as him, where he's like running with the guy, he's able to get his head turned and play the football. And he did that really well. You see a lot of those younger guys like panic, get too physical, or just like misplay the ball in itself. Yeah. Vinny Gray. He's phenomenal at that. He's great at just making plays on the ball. He's really good with his eyes in the backfield. So what you mentioned, like in zone, being able to look at the quarterback and then go make a play on the ball. Same thing that you mentioned. I think the reason why his film is so good, but he's not going until maybe like in the 3rd round is because you have those concerns about just the physical attributes and being able to keep up with elite guys. But the film that I watched, both Bama and Notre Dame, was impressive. And so he comes in there. And then Kyler Gordon's a little bit of the opposite. Like, this guy has all the physical attributes in the world. He'll run like a 4.340 in the 4.3s, 42.5-inch vertical. He made Feldman's freak list. So that's a list that I always pay attention to. He's just like, at the end of the day, football's about being the superior athlete. Kyler Gordon will certainly be that. That being said, the film isn't nearly as good as a Kobe Bryant. And you mentioned that.
With Kyle Gordon, is it Kyler or Kyle?
I think it's Kyler Gordon. I can go check that.
I can, but Gordon. My problem with him is I'm a little concerned drafting a guy high who played basically inside zone, like a slot cornerback in a zone all year.
Just like McDuffie.
You saw very few man coverage reps, and I think some of them you did. I think against Cal, a little bit against Washington State. I mean, you didn't see the ball skills, not making a ton of plays on the ball.
Yep.
Certainly not in man coverage. A little bit in zone, but even then, I don't know that he's got that level. And I don't see the closing burst that I would think his athleticism would suggest he should have, either tackling runners or playing the ball. So that's kind of my concerns. Is I don't think he was challenged in college, which is a problem. Like, when you just play zone in the slot every play, does that prepare you well for the league? I don't know about it. And then just some concerns. Is he going to make plays on the ball, and how he's going to have a very limited scope is kind of what I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler Gordon's kind of the opposite of Kobe Bryant. Only 12 passes defended, 2 interceptions in his 3 years of ball, and most of that came in that last year of production. I saw a little bit more reps at the boundary than you did, I think, in that I watched the film on UCLA, Michigan, and Oregon. But you kind of mentioned it, like, the Pac-12, you don't get tested too much with those elite wide receivers. Really, Drake London, who didn't play a full year, is like the only guy I can think of who really pops at that wide receiver position. So there's not many of those like big, faster guys who are going to challenge you downfield. And that's a knock on Trent McDuffie too, who had phenomenal film and definitely has that short area quickness.
And it's weak quarterback play, so it's like the whole conference is a 100%. Joke.
And so that you definitely like get a little bit concerned with that.
And I know you mentioned he had a little issues with Cornelius Johnson at Michigan playing the ball in the air, and I don't know. That's concerning, because that's kind of what separates the elite college guys from the elite pros.
I think that's why
you don't have the ball skills, you just can't do it.
I think that's why you have him a little bit lower, and he goes lower than Kobe Bryant. But like, the physical attributes are there, and he had a rep where he ran step for step with Roman Wilson down the field and made a play. Didn't really make a play on the ball, but it was more like, since he was right there, he was able to.
That's impressive for sure, because Roman
Wilson's a bird. There's not many other guys who kept up with Roman Wilson. Kyler Gordon's one of them. Moving on to Darian Kendrick, who is kind of I wouldn't say like opposite, but he faced some of the elite guys in both the ACC and his time at Clemson and in the college football playoffs when he's playing teams like LSU and Alabama, but also at Georgia, where he's facing just elite SEC wide receivers. And I have a similar concern with Darian Kendrick as I do with the Nakobe Dean, Channing to Quay Walker, where you don't have to be sticky for too long. You know what I mean? You're playing a lot of zone. You're not sticking with guys very long because of that defensive line is applying so much pressure on the quarterback. When Darian Kendrick was tasked with kind of staying sticky for a while, it didn't go that well. He definitely does not have that long speed, at least on the film. There was one pass in the SEC championship game where Bryce Young just underthrew Jamison Williams, but Jamison Williams was running away from him pretty clearly.
And too many big plays out of Darian Kendrick in the big games.
6'1", 6'2", and he's physical, and you like that. And that's like something I noticed is like, he is physical, and he breaks on the ball pretty well, but there's a lot of concerns with how sticky he can be. He actually was a 5-star wide receiver prospect out of high school, and because of that wide receiver room being so deep with guys like Justin Ross, T. Higgins, he flips to cornerback, and The ball skills are there. It's just I worry about how sticky he can be with those elite wide receivers.
Yeah, my peak problem is just big plays. The guy let up a lot of big plays. If he didn't get a really good jam on guys, it was over.
Yep.
And there's nothing he could do because he doesn't have the recovery speed. He really can't keep up with the elite wideouts. When you saw him step up against Bama, even like Roman Wilson's like developing, but he is an elite speed deep runner, and he got Darian Kendrick on a route. So I'm like just concerned about that. I don't think he's clearing the athletic bar for where he's got to be to really play at a high level in the league. But
and
I don't know if he can be really good physically dealing with guys, like maybe he can develop into a solid corner for specific schemes. But
I remember I was trying to convince you to get Darian Kendrick for the Bills with that second round pick, and you saying, hey, he doesn't have the speed to match up with guys like Tyreek Hill and guys you're going to need to match up with to win a Super Bowl there in Buffalo. And what I said was maybe we have to find guys who are more physical as opposed to more fast and be able to reroute a guy like Tyreek Hill. That's the way he's going to win in the NFL. You get concerned with, like, did you see that at high enough level? And was he asked to do it at a high enough level? Like, he has an easy job playing cornerback at Georgia and at Clemson. Like, those two of the best front fours in the country, if not the best. It was a relatively easy job.
Yeah, I just don't think you saw like dominant tape out of him.
No, you really did. You really did.
Not one of the like reasons that defense was rocking it, kind of in my mind.
But, no, not even close. I thought Lewis Cine and Keely Ringo were better. Well, the Keely Ringo is going to be good, by the way. Shout out.
We'll talk about that later. I don't know. I'm not as high on.
He's going to be good. He's going to be a top 20 pick next year. 100%.
Yeah, we'll see.
Last guy we got, Josh Jobe. I really did not like what I saw out of Josh Jobe. He's again has an easy job with Bama and that Will Anderson, Mathis, Dale. They got after the quarterback at a high level, so you weren't being asked to be super sticky. You had great safety play with Jordan Battle too, and Malachi Moore. I worry about the change of direction. He's not that sudden moving with guys in man coverage. I saw Charleston Rambo get the best of him a couple times when I watched the Miami game. He was pretty solid against Ole Miss, and A&M gave him a lot of problems, whether he was dealing with Aeneas Smith. He blew 2 coverages against A&M. And so it's just like he was a guy with like first-round talent, and he has good length, and he has very good jam at the line of scrimmage. In a similar way to Darian Kendrick, like if he doesn't win at the line of scrimmage, he struggles. And that's why he's kind of fallen to outside the top 10. And
yeah, the ability to deal with like hard cutting routes is supremely concerning to me. I think
yes,
because ultimately how he played was a press man, and he'd be in a trail position generally, and like good hard cuts, and he just doesn't stick with them that tight.
I noticed
he was leaving some guys open
when receivers like stacked him vertically and got him running with them in that trail. And then like brought the route.
He wasn't staying in him pockets.
He's very struggles to stick with those guys. That being said, similar with Darian Kendrick, like he's got a good jam and
he's got traits that at least like he's long.
Yeah,
I think he can run. I didn't see him getting like burned. It was more can he be sticky and can he kind of shadow wideouts, which I mean if you can't do it, yeah, it's a trouble. But I don't know. I think he's another guy who's got a level of versatility. Like he played a lot of man, he played a little bit of zone, and I mean with the bigger frame, long, could he be a workout as a decent zone corner? Maybe that's kind of where he falls. But yeah, I'm with you. I just didn't think the tape was good enough this year to justify being up with the sort of the more upper echelon corners this draft.
And the cornerback, along with like edge, is like a super interesting position group to evaluate because traits matter the most probably in those positions. And like you're balancing out, like does Roger McCreary, he doesn't have like the exact traits you're looking for, but he's also put out like phenomenal film. I think there's guys like I'm trying to think, maybe Jermaine Johnson, who's like doesn't maybe have like the best traits, but the film was really, really good. Jermaine Johnson's a guy that's skyrocketing up my board. And they're balancing out, like, okay, you have to put out good film, but you also want to have good traits where you can like succeed at the NFL level. Having guys like Kobe Bryant, Kyler Gordon, Marcus Jones, like discussing those, like where you want to stack those guys up based on traits versus film is an interesting conversation that you have a lot with the cornerback and the edge position. But yeah, that's how our cornerback's shaking out. We still got to get some Kyer Elam film, and I'm guessing he's going to be kind of in that Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth range. I don't see him being over Roger McCreary from what I've seen. And so we'll be adding him to our list as well. This weekend, Senior Bowl tomorrow at 2:30. We'll be watching that. We'll be jumping on right after the Senior Bowl to give our takes on the guys who are rising and falling from the Senior Bowl. I already been watching a lot of the practice film. Some guys are really impressing, guys like Travis Jones, Jermaine Johnson. So we'll give you our notes and takes from that after that game is done. And we'll be back with more position rankings, and we'll start building out that big board as we fill out our prospect rankings. As usual, appreciate you guys rocking with the ROC Boys, and we'll be back later with more content. Peace.